Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at the week starting on Monday, May the 26th, 2025. I will be starting with a preview of the week's main astrological events, and I will be finishing with an I Ching reading where I will be looking at the week ahead from the perspective of the general picture, then money, then career and business, and finally relationships. And I also want to look at the plane crash which happened on May the 22nd. It was, I think it happened at 3:45 a.m. and it has got a fair amount of news, and I want to look at the chart for when that plane crash happened, see if there's anything interesting there. We do have a date of birth for the pilot. It was someone involved with the music industry, Dave Shapiro, who also was heavily involved with flying, and so it does seem that there were a few things going on astrologically in his chart, and maybe the crash was more about him than the actual generic timing of the accident. But we'll be looking at that very soon. So let's start by looking at the week ahead. So here is a chart for the beginning of a week, midnight on Monday, May the 26th, set for New York. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe, if appropriate. So here's the chart, and Saturn is, of course, now in Aries. So this is the first week where we have this rather important sign change, and it's another outer planet going into a positive sign. So we've got sort of Neptune has just moved into Aries, a far sign, positive sign. We've got Pluto has, of course, gone into Aquarius. Uranus is just waiting to move into Gemini. So the outer planets are sort of pushing us forward, aren't they? And also, beginning of the week, we have Mercury changing sign. You can see that Mercury is in Gemini. So we can really say that the Taurus season is over, and Mercury moving into Gemini is, well, in one sense it's a good thing because Mercury rules Gemini. On the other hand, Mercury is combust. So, having Mercury in Gemini combust, sometimes we don't always make the greatest of decisions. Mercury can be overwhelmed by the sun and can still feel pretty confident. That's Mercury in Gemini. And Mercury in Gemini is about talking, it's about thinking, it's about communicating, it's about being original, it's about having different ideas, it's about playing with ideas, and that's all well and good, provided that we don't take ourselves too seriously, or but we must make sure that we don't forget about common sense. Now, Mercury, when it moves into Gemini, it does make a sextile to Saturn and a sextile to Neptune, and that takes place on the Monday, and so Mercury sextile Saturn is certainly a good aspect. It allows us to have a sense of proportion, but it's also sextiles Neptune. Well, Mercury sextile Neptune could be quite imaginative, and we can have some sort of interesting thoughts, and we won't want to be constrained. So perhaps with Mercury making a sextile to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, we can take our ideas and our visions and maybe we can bring them down to earth. Then on Tuesday, well, Mercury does make a trine to Pluto, so we've got Mercury making soft aspects, not just to Saturn and Neptune, but to Pluto as well. So it all happens very quickly. But with Mercury trine Pluto, well, we could say that that might allow us to be quite persuasive, and we might have a way with words, regardless of our sign. Also, we have this new moon. So the moon, starts the week in Taurus, but then it moves into Gemini, and we have a new moon at, I think it's 6 Gemini, I think. It's at 6 degrees 6 minutes Gemini, and new lunar cycle. The moon is no longer waning, it's waxing, and Gemini really comes into evidence there. I mean, we will have the moon, Mercury, Sun, and Jupiter all in Gemini. So things are really moving. Lots of ideas, lots of things to think about, and it might be a time when we are all over the place because there are so many things out there that we want to take on board. So it might give us plenty of variety. And in a way, that new moon on Tuesday is the peak of the week. So astrologically, Tuesday is maximum action for the week, and after Tuesday, well, things aren't necessarily so interesting. But there are a couple of Jupiter aspects of note. On May the 30th, Jupiter will be biquintile Pluto. And so biquintile is 144 degree aspect, 2/5 of the circle. So that is about what we are trying to create. Jupiter and Pluto as a pair are connected with improvement. We're not completely happy with the way things are because they could always be better, even if they're great. So with Jupiter biquintile Pluto, at the end of a week, it may be a time when we feel that we want to push things. We have an idea about how we like to push things, and then we can now sort of go ahead, and we've got to believe in ourselves. And then right at the end of the week, on June the 1st, which is a Sunday, Jupiter is semi-sextile Uranus. And how do we find freedom? Freedom is an important concept with Jupiter and Uranus, and that is something we are looking for. And so freedom is not necessarily always easy to find, and Jupiter in Gemini has to accommodate Uranus in Taurus. We think we're developing in a particular direction, then we have to consider something that is a little bit unexpected. But I will be talking about that Jupiter biquintile Pluto and Jupiter semi-sextile Uranus. I'll be talking about them in detail when I do a video for next weekend. So let's look at this plane crash in San Diego. I think that 6 people were killed. Everyone on board was killed. They were involved with the music industry, so this man, Dave Shapiro, who seems to have been quite sort of major entrepreneur. He was involved in aeroplanes and music, all sorts of things. So clearly, he was a very talented man, and he was, I think, flying the plane. And this is the chart of the accident. I think it was at 3:45. I have changed the coordinates. I know it says San Diego, but I then changed the coordinates to the precise place where the accident happened. And I would not have said that this chart is really completely amazing. I don't think it necessarily has the standard significators of a plane crash. I mean, what I'm looking for primarily is a planet on the ascendant or the midheaven. I mean, that to me is what really matters. That Uranus on the IC, that would be a standard significator of of an earthquake, or something like a plane crash. We don't see that. I mean, there are sort of more subtle significators. I mean, for example, Mercury is opposition. No, sorry, Uranus is opposition true black moon Lilith, and Uranus was at 2733 Taurus, black moon Lilith, true black moon Lilith at 2723 Scorpio, quite close to the 8th house cusp. So you might say that there is a signature of death, and of course black moon Lilith inhabits the night, and of course this crash took place at 3:45 in the morning, well before dawn. So yeah, that might be a way of looking at this chart. And as far as other things are concerned, okay, Saturn was conjunct Skeet, but the thing about Saturn being conjunct Skeet, and okay, rather unfortunate place for Saturn to be, is what makes that special? What makes that special to that location? I mean, Saturn would have been conjunct Skeet all over the world, and so why did it crash then? So what was the big deal about that? So there is a bit of a problem there, as far as really saying that that's where that's how the crash happened. I think there's a danger here of hindsight, just seeing things with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, and I would not have said with this chart that we see anything spectacular. One thing one could look at, and I'm not saying anything is there, is the ascendant midheaven midpoint. So let's see if anything is on the ascendant midheaven midpoint, because that is the time and the place. So if we do the 90-degree dial for the accident, here it is. So there is the ascendant, and where's the midheaven? So I don't actually see anything on the. I don't really see anything particularly on the ascendant midheaven midpoint. So I think this is a case of saying that we're not always going to see anything. Admetos is not on the ascendant midheaven midpoint. So this is an example of a chart which doesn't tell us much on its own. So we then have to think about the passengers and the person flying the plane. I mean, by the way, when I say it doesn't tell us much on its own, I'm just looking at it from a viewpoint of me quickly looking at the chart. There may be something I have missed. So the prime passenger one should think of is the person flying a plane, and that is Dave Shapiro, who was born on January the 11th, 1983. So here is his chart, and he is a Capricorn, but a Capricorn with a lot of planets in Sagittarius. I mean, he's got a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Sagittarius, so he was born at this time, and he has the moon in Sagittarius and Neptune in Sagittarius. Okay, it might not seem, but he's got personal planets. He hasn't got personal planets in Sagittarius, only one, the moon, but still he has maybe moon conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius, and I'm sure that moon conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius must have really helped him with his career in music, and he would have known what worked, what was important for the collective. And so if you have that sort of inspiration connected with moon in Sagittarius, you're able to make the right decisions, and things can come together. Moon is additionally sextile Mars in Aquarius, so that is certainly a fairly a dynamic chart, on the face of it. And he did have Mercury square Saturn, and Mercury square Saturn and Venus square Saturn probably got Saturn on the Mercury-Venus midpoint. And that Saturn on the Mercury-Venus midpoint, might have actually been quite helpful, because when you see a Mercury-Venus conjunction, you very, very often start to consider matters of creativity. It's a very creative pairing, Mercury and Venus. And so you would have thought that maybe Saturn square Mercury-Venus might have been about feeling that he couldn't be creative enough, but it just could be about hard work, working very hard to put his creativity into practice. So that's his chart. I don't think we can say a great deal about it without a time of birth. And then there are the transits. The transits, when that accident happened, what was he actually experiencing? And so he would have had Pluto. Pluto was square his Saturn, and he has Saturn on the Mercury-Venus midpoint. So there was a Pluto involvement here. And you don't normally associate Pluto just, with death. And instead, Pluto may have been pushing something too hard. So if you've got Pluto square Saturn, maybe at the time he was pushing things hard, and he felt he had to, fly this plane, take on as much as possible. I don't think it was necessarily his fault that this plane crash happened. He was landing at night, and there are questions about the airport and whether it was fully prepared. I'm not really into planes and airports, so we won't know for a few weeks about why this accident happened. But Pluto was on his Mercury-Venus midpoint, and it was aspecting Saturn. So that does seem to have some relationship to the accident. And additionally, if we look at his solar arc directions, by the way, Mercury was conjunct his Chiron, pretty much exactly conjunct his Chiron. And if we look at his solar arc directions, so he was 40, I think he was 42 when he died. He was 42 when he died. So that's his solar return, by the way. I can't really tell much from his solar return because we don't have a time of birth. I don't see anything especially dramatic or amazing about the solar return. Possibly had Moon square Saturn in his solar return, but we don't know because we don't have a time of birth. So it's possible that there was a Moon Saturn square. But it would have been nice to have some angles there, but we don't get that with that solar return. And with his solar arc directions, so here are his solar arc directions. Moving every planet around about 42 degrees. So these were the directions for the time when the accident happened. And then if we compare that with his natal chart, he has his Uranus here. Uranus was at 7 degrees Sagittarius, and Uranus directed Uranus. It had moved on to 20 degrees Capricorn. So that means that his directed Uranus had moved right on to his to his sun, and having directed Uranus on your sun is actually a classic significator of an accident. And his sun, if we look at his sun and the state of his sun, and we can use the 90-degree dial to do that, then we might get further information about it. So if we do that, so there is his directed Uranus, making the conjunction to his sun. There's his natal sun. Uranus is on his sun, and he natally has sun aspecting his Jupiter-Uranus midpoint. So Dave Shapiro with sun on his Jupiter-Uranus midpoint, it is the principle of freedom, wanting to take things further. I mean, let's see what Eberton says about having the sun on the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint. And Eberton says, Reinhold Eberton, in Combination of Stellar Influences, he says sun on the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint, and I think it's pretty fortunate. A good intellectual grasp, an inventive mind, far-sightedness, physical agility or mobility, sudden physical happiness and birth. So it's a really nice thing to have in your chart, and it makes for an exciting person. But then solar arc directed Uranus on his sun, on his Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, coincided with the accident which killed all these people. So he wanted the most of life, and piloting his plane at 3:45 in the morning was his expression of his freedom, and for some reason it killed him. And I don't think we can say any more than that, because I don't have his time of birth. And now I want to turn to the I Ching. So remember with this I Ching that if you don't want your I Ching to be read, you don't have to have it read. This reading only applies if you are watching the section of a video connected with the I Ching. If you're not watching it, it doesn't apply to you. So if you don't want your I Ching read, you can stop watching a video. So I asked the question, what is the week starting on Monday, May the 26th, 2025, going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And remember, this I Ching reading has 4 sections: general section, then money, then career and business, and finally relationships. And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 5, and this gives us the principle of waiting. We're waiting for something, and we might feel that we don't have to do very much, but we know that in the end we're going to have to do something. We can't wait forever. And what we're waiting to do is to take some kind of initiative where we do have to get our hands dirty. We know we have to do it, but for some reason we are pausing. And I think the I Ching is telling us that it's actually probably quite a good idea that we pause, because we know we're going to have to do it. It's not like this hexagram is called avoidance. I don't think there isn't a hexagram which is called avoidance. We know what we have to do, and we know that in the end, there is no choice. And we have here 2 moving lines. The bottom line moves and the top line moves. And with the bottom line moving, we may have a sense of anxiety that we know that something's going to happen, and we're not very comfortable about it, and there is a feeling of fear that might be connected with the fact that Saturn has just gone into Aries, and so we've got a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. There is a lot of fear with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Perhaps I shouldn't mix up the astrology and the I Ching. And so the question is, what do we do? And the advice here, certainly at the beginning of a week, is to do nothing. We know, we know we have to do something in the end, but to begin with, we should stay as we are, and we should enjoy that position of relative safety. Particularly as we kind of feel that if we were to move forward, well, who knows what might happen. And then the top line moves. Now, the top line moves. That may say something about later on in the week, and we feel we have to make our move. And if we do make a move, that first move may not actually work out. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't make the move, but as soon as we try to do something, whatever that big initiative is, perhaps because Tuesday we've got the new moon, so with the new moon, new lunar cycle, we might find it's time to get going, and we make our move, and quite quickly things could go wrong. And there is an image here of falling in a hole or being stuck in a cave, and so what do we do? But the I Ching also talks about 3 uninvited guests. Now, that might literally mean 3 uninvited guests. People just turn up uninvited. But just because someone is uninvited doesn't mean that they're a problem. And the I Ching is telling us that people who are uninvited might actually be in a position to help us. And so if we do fall in a hole, we feel that we're stuck, we tried and we don't know where we're going, where is this going to lead, and we might get some help. I think we probably will get some help. So if you do get to a stage this week where it just really feels that nothing is moving, don't worry. Help is at hand. And then, because we've got 2 moving lines, we move to a second hexagram, and the hexagram we move to is a hexagram number 57, which is the gentle. So this hexagram, which I forgot to put the 57 on, so I'll put the 57 on now. There we go. That's better. 57, the gentle. It's a state where we shouldn't feel that we have to take the initiative. And so if things go wrong, it may be that it's not up to us to get us out of a bad situation. We can trust other people. Even if things don't go wrong, there is a place for trust. Now, that is not blind trust, because another way of looking at the gentle is about finding the roots of a problem, and the gentle is about the wind, and the wind can rush through things. I often see with the gentle, I have this sort of image of a big house, and sort of almost maybe a haunted house, and wind is rushing through the doors and the corridors and the windows, and it's just going through everything, rushing through everything, going under beds, going everywhere, and finding the root cause of a problem. And so perhaps that's what it's really all about. We are stuck, help is available, and additionally, when we get that help, we start to realize what the real problem was. And once we realize what the problem is, we are then in a position to actually deal with it. Now, as far as money is concerned, if money is important to you, if that's something on your mind, then we might feel at the beginning of a week that we are waiting for something. We're perhaps hoping for some good news financially. We hope that it's coming our way. Maybe we're afraid of bad news, but we're certainly waiting for something. And we might also feel or know that we have to do something financially. We have to initiate something. Now, that's not to say that we have to do it. I'm not giving any financial advice here. This is an astrology channel. I'm not a financial expert, far from it. But it just may feel that you're waiting to do something financially. And you're aware of the risks, absolutely aware of the risks. Things could go wrong. And, it's good that you're aware of the dangers. And then, at some stage you have to act, but at the beginning of a week, it's best to do nothing. Absolutely. You just, don't take any financial initiatives. Perhaps you were planning on doing something financially, but probably it might be best to postpone it. But don't forget, I'm not giving financial advice. This video is for entertainment purposes only. And then, if you do take any initiatives financially, or maybe you don't even take initiatives, just something happens, you might run into trouble. There might be something going on financially that you don't feel happy with. And that would relate to being in a cave. The I Ching talks about being stuck in a hole. Something is just not right, and you don't really know how to resolve the issue. But advice does seem to be at hand, because the I Ching talks about 3 uninvited guests. Now, this is not 3, I don't think this is 3 uninvited guests asking for money. Well, if they are asking for money, you can ignore them. But I think it's more likely to be people who are around, who are prepared to give you advice and offer their support. And you may actually become aware by talking to another person, even if this person isn't consciously trying to give advice. You may actually be aware of something that is wrong, what you perhaps have been doing wrong, or it could be someone else has been doing something wrong. And this leads into the next hexagram, because we have 2 moving lines. We do move to a second hexagram, and it is hexagram 57, which is the gentle, which is very much connected with the wind. And the wind is really understanding everything about your own finances, and perhaps other people's finances as well, and starting to see where mistakes might have been made, and you get it, and it does become clear. And so you see where the mistakes have been made, and you can really get to the bottom of things. And that's what you should be striving for. And so where is the problem? And it just may be a single problem, that something you've been doing again and again that has been tripping you up financially, but you see it. And perhaps you'll get some advice, you'll be told that something is the case, and you get it finally. And so a lot of financial mysteries can maybe be cleared up, and you may just have a greater awareness of what you've been doing in the past, and how things can be better in the future financially. Then there is career and business. And are you waiting to do something? You have to do something, and it could be anything. It could be starting a new business, looking for a new client. It could be looking for a job. Maybe if you have a job, something you have to do extra in your job, and you're wondering, when is the time to do it? And you're waiting. You know you have to do it. And at first, really, there's nothing that has to be done. It's best to bide your time. That does matter. You bide your time, and you try to understand, what's happening. And if you were to move too early, that would not be the right thing. And certainly, you should be waiting until after the new moon. So I think the new moon is on Tuesday. Okay, I don't say certainly waiting, but this is the beginning of the week, end of the lunar cycle. But the new lunar cycle starts on Tuesday, and maybe that's when the waiting is over, and you feel you want to do something. And if you try to do something at work or in business, or maybe try to get a new job, at first you could run into trouble, and you might actually at some stage feel completely stuck, that it's just not working. And what do you do? And you might have a rather suspicious and negative view. But you don't have to do everything on your own, and you can get help from outside sources. Maybe it's people you work with, maybe just people who you can just get advice from. And the I Ching talks about 3 uninvited guests, and that does indicate a certain degree of suspicion. Uninvited guests. We don't want uninvited guests, but these uninvited guests may be useful. They might give you good advice. They might actually help you to get out of a difficult situation. And additionally, you can find a way of getting to the bottom of an underlying problem, because this hexagram moves to hexagram number 57, which is the gentle, which is very much connected with the wind. And so with the wind, you can look at your work, look at how you're doing business, look at how you're trying to get a job, and you see how you're doing it, and you start to see what the problem is. Now, this problem might be to do with you, something you've not been getting right, or it could be to do with external forces. Someone might have been holding you back. You might have been looking for work in the wrong areas, and it starts to make sense. And you have to take, in a way, a submissive approach. Submissive because you are accepting of alternative views and alternative approaches. You mustn't think that you've got everything sorted out, because I don't think you have. You have all the answers. And so if you can sort of listen to what people are saying and advising, then that will allow you to get over this hurdle. There is a hurdle, but I do think it's a hurdle that you'll be able to get over with. You'll be able to deal with. So it's not actually a bad I Ching reading for career matters this week. It's just that there may be a hiccup, and it's something that you do have to deal with. And finally, there is relationships, and I don't know to what extent relationships matter to you this week, but if relationships, regardless of what the relationship is, if relationships matter, then you may be waiting. Something may be on hold, because the first hexagram, is waiting. And it's important when dealing with other people that you don't rush into anything. It matters that you do stay where you are to begin with, and you don't take sudden initiatives. And perhaps you need to wait for the new moon, because on Monday, the beginning of this week, the moon is still waning. But with the new moon, that might bring new opportunities for action, and you feel you want to make your introductions, or you may start talking to someone, and you may want to move an existing relationship to some new level. But then the top line moves, and that does indicate that certain relationships may not work out well. Not permanently, but you may feel that your attempts to get on with another person just don't really work. And you may just feel that things are completely stuck. And it doesn't seem that there is any movement. And part of the problem, perhaps, with some relationships is it's just too intense. It's like you and another person, and things aren't going anywhere. And if that intensity was lost, if there was other foci, that would be better. And it might then be the case that you need to socialize more, because the I Ching is talking about 3 uninvited guests. And so 3 uninvited guests, the more people you have around you, the better. And you might think, well, what if one person is difficult to deal with, then more people to deal with, more people to have to relate to, that's going to make things even worse. But it probably won't make matters worse. You will lose some of that intensity, and you don't want to be in a situation where you regard any one person as being significant. And it also gives you perspective. How can you really understand another person and understand the value of another person if they're the only person around? If you've got other people around, then you can start to make comparisons. And this hexagram weighting, it moves to hexagram 57, the gentle. Now, the gentle might indicate that you have to give people a chance, that you have to allow people to take the initiative, or at least to state their case. At the same time, the gentle is about the wind, and it's about the wind going through everything and giving you an opportunity to understand someone, because that's what the gentle is about, understanding. Really understanding what a person is all about. And with this understanding, you can start to see a person's darkness, a person's unpleasantness. And, that's a good thing, because if you know how unpleasant someone is, how dark they are, then you can start to evaluate them. I mean, if everyone is completely nice and doesn't reveal their dark side, then you're not in a position to evaluate them. You have no idea whether or not this person is worth taking a risk on. So the gentle gives you a really powerful insight into someone. And because of this insight, you're in a position to make a judgment whether you want to give this person more of your time, or whether you want to perhaps quit while you're ahead. Or you can see how a person could behave in the future, and you decide you don't really want to take the risk. So this hexagram, the gentle, really does give you an opportunity to really understand someone like never before. And that's it. Those are my forecasts with the I Ching, and I hope you have a great week. If you enjoy this video, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, I'd be super grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the description. And I will talk to you again very soon.